Okay, we're going to call this regular meeting to order for the Venus Independent School District on February 20th, 2023 at 7:01. And we have a quorum. If everybody please stand, we're going to have our FFA come in and lead us in the invocation. I'm sorry. Joe, would you like to lead us in the invocation?
Gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before you tonight, Lord, we just come with thankful hearts. Lord, we thank you for the privilege of serving you and serving this community. Lord, we just ask for your blessings on this community, for these kids. Lord, we ask for wisdom for this school board as we make decisions tonight that will affect this community and these kids in years to come. Lord, again, we just thank you. We ask for your forgiveness when we fail you. In Christ's name I ask. Amen.
I want to thank y'all for leading us in the pledge.
Thank you, guys.
And I,
Can I,
yes,
hey guys,
Mr. Hopper.
can I say that you grab the kids?
Mackenzie.
Yes, come on in here.
Appreciate you guys being here for this. I know it didn't take long to lead in the pledge. This is, it's National FFA Week, is that right? Yes, sir. So it's National FFA Week, and we love what our FFA does in the lives of our kids. And I always say, years after kids graduate, I can tell a kid that's been through the FFA program because they have leadership, they have character, they have work ethic. And so I very much appreciate what you guys are doing. And you show up, you always do what you need to do, and we're very proud of you and very proud of what you do. So again, thank you. Proud of our sponsors back here too. So thank you. Right?
Yes, and thank y'all. Okay, so that was real nice. We're going to go to item number 4, presentation of campus reports and recognition. And who wants to? Oh, there we go.
Going out
Mr.
of order
Bronson.
here. I think the first thing you see is our teacher of the month, and that's Ms. Knowles. She has really stepped up this year. Without a math department, she has gone from teaching to being the math department chair. She's not only a leader in that math department, but she's becoming a leader, an instructional leader throughout the whole campus. The one thing that sets her apart is she is not only interested in how her kids are performing in the classroom, she's interested in how every kid is performing, not only in math, but in all other areas. So she develops relationships as well with those kiddos, and it's glad to see her come forward being so young. Our staff member of the month is Ms. Shaw.
Sean, but that's not her in the picture. That's her.
Okay. So Ms. Shaw is currently a para, and she's in school to be a teacher. And I have to say that we are all looking forward for her to get that diploma because she is outstanding with students. She's not only helpful with students, she's also helpful with teachers, and that's in the classroom, in the hallways, in the cafeteria. You know, she's just amazing, and she's going to make a amazing future teacher for VISD. And she told me the other day she plans to take extra courses this summer because she can't wait. So we're glad to see that enthusiasm. Okay, our student of the month is Giovanni Tamayo. He is not only an outstanding athlete, he's overall a top student that we have. Great representative of what it actually means to be a bulldog. He's humble, and I'll explain a little bit about that in a minute. But he works hard both in the classroom and in the weight room. The great thing about him is his motivation. I've never seen a young man motivated in the weight room and in the classroom, and it really shows. Just speaking with him for 30 seconds, and you understand, he understands that he can shape his future. So he's a great kid. Yes, sir. I was going to get to that, but I'm gonna go ahead and do it now then. He is currently slated to try for a position in state, and we're all pretty sure he's going to get there. His squat, he's currently at 650 pounds at squat, and when we were at the weightlifting, the power meet there in Venus, he benched 445. This weekend, they're going to start him off at 520, so there's no telling what he can get to, but for him to bench 500 was just mind-blowing to me. But he's humble about it, and he's going to be successful. I think, I don't know what his deadlift is, but it was too many plates for me to count, so he's going to be okay. On our spotlights, we have our band students, and this past month they participated in all regional clinic and concert, and you have a picture of them there. That's a real close-knit group. And then we have our powerlifting. There, we hosted a meet where not only Giovanni but several of our students were successful in the competition. And then we have our choir. If you've not heard our choir, if you ever have the chance to, you need to. She started off with a small group, and she knows how to work a room, work a choir. She brings the best out of those students. But they traveled to Bass Hall, where they watched The Lion King, and we had several conversations. Some of them have never been there, but they were able to make music connections as to why they're in choir and how they perform professionally. And then our last program is our Spanish class. And in the Spanish class, esos estudiantes hicieron mapas, entonces hicieron y dieron direcciones en español. So what they did is, in Spanish, they created maps of Venus, and then they were able to give directions. So they broke up into groups, and then they were graded on how well they did on directional vocabulary with being in total immersion Spanish. So it was a good thing to see coming from an old Spanish teacher. I got kind of excited when I was in the room. And then the last thing, we have one TAP teacher who is attending college. She is currently our reading teacher in the blended learning, and she's very successful. She's seems to be working out extremely well.
All right. Oh, that's a big picture. Okay. So middle school is next, and of course, it just went away. So my teacher of the month this month was Mark Christensen. He's our girls coordinator, girls coach. He is also involved in TSA. He does robotics. He does coding. So he is kind of an all-around everything. He's involved anywhere and everywhere, motivates the kids. They look forward to his classes. We just had TSA competition this last weekend. We'll talk about that in a minute. And he is there to support students in their success every step of the way. So our support staff of the month is Rebecca Brink. She is the librarian on our campus. She works very hard to make sure that everyone has everything they need, creates opportunities for kids, like the Letters for Literacy contest, which we're going to talk about in a minute, and allows kids to have experiences they wouldn't have otherwise. And then my student of the month is Leslie, I'm going to mess it up, Gallardo de la Cruz. Leslie is an amazing young lady. She's a hard worker, always lends a hand whenever she's needed. She recently wrote a beautiful letter describing how a book changed her life. It was heartfelt and genuine. That letter was entered into the Letters About Literacy contest in December. We were just recently notified that her letter has made it to the final round of judging. And from that round, the winner will be chosen. We should hear around middle of March whether it was her or not. If she's chosen, she'll travel to Austin to the library conference where she will read her letter to a group of librarians and authors from all around the state of Texas. She'll receive a $300 check. The middle school library gets a $200 check. But we are super proud of Leslie and all of the things that she does. So. Things going on campus. We have had an 8th grade author visit at the end of January. Next week we have a 7th grade author visit coming, and then in March we'll have an author come visit with the 6th grade. Basketball season wrapped up, and at the end of basketball season, they took the girls' athletics, the girl coaches took the girl athletics to a TCU basketball game to kind of wrap everything up there at the end, and so that was super exciting. High school counselors have been over. They're starting to talk to kids about choosing high school courses in 8th grade. We're meeting next week with 6th and 7th graders to choose courses, and we've already scheduled time with the elementary for that. And then, of course, the stuff about Leslie. Let's see. The Avid teacher took the kids to a Mavericks game, and they did a Mavericks career day, and then they stayed for a Mavericks game, so that was exciting trip for the Avid kiddos. We've completed our map testing, which y'all will hear about that. Last weekend we had TSA competition. We don't have the results. Hopefully tomorrow we'll have those results. And then in January, at the end of January, we had UIL academics. And so we had 66 kids receive medals or ribbons during academic UIL. And that's broken out in who got what. But that's all the exciting things happening at the middle school.
Okay, so let's go on down to our people of the month. Our teacher of the month is Kayla Guest. She is a 2nd-year teacher and has done an amazing job with us. We had the instructional reading coach with her all last year, and she went into Kayla's room at the beginning of this year, and Kayla had everything set up, ready to go for her kids. She's a go-getter. She is a researcher. She has a journalism background, so she's constantly writing with her kids. She just does an amazing job, and we're so very happy that we have her and glad that she wants to stay at Venus until she retires. She loves our kiddos. And our staff member of the month is Pam Jarrett. And most of you, if you go down Main Street in the morning or in the afternoon, Pam Jarrett is out there for crosswalk duty every morning and every afternoon. And she also takes care of our gifted and talented program at the elementary, and she's our gifted and talented coordinator for the district. But she has done an amazing job with our GT program. She sees each of our grade levels for a full day and runs through all of their core curriculum with them. And students cannot wait until it's their day of the week to go to her class. She's brought in a forensic scientist that he's done all kinds of presentations with them on forensics and done lots of career paths for them, getting them ready for STEM. So our kids are just doing amazing things in GT and carrying that excitement back to their classrooms, telling them about all the things they're doing in GT. And it's just been an amazing program for our campus. She does a great job. And our student of the month is Camilla Bautista, and she is in 2nd grade. And she is amazing. She's like a little mother hen in Miss Williams' class. If a student is absent, she wants to make sure that they have all their work. She wants to make sure that you have your books that you need to be reading. She wants to make sure you have your Lexia minutes. Like, she wants to make sure that everything is going on. Miss Williams could leave and Camilla could teach the class, and the kids would be perfectly happy with that. She is just very much a nurturer, and I see in her future that she will do something in a career path that she will be taking care of people, because that's what she does best in her classroom. But she exemplifies our bulldog paws in every way. And I included our art teacher back at the top. Our art teacher has even been doing writing in art class. She's trying to incorporate that so that we're writing across all curriculum pieces. And students wrote goals. They're pop-in goals for the new year. And they were really cool to read. They weren't like silly goals. They were like, I want to improve in Lexia. I want to improve in this. I want to help my mom at home. I want to help my brother learn to read more. They were very thoughtful in the goals that they wrote. And then last year or the year before, I can't remember, 3rd grade incorporated in their writing memes, and they give them these random pictures and the kids come up with their own memes. I cannot, like, you will literally be crying when you sit and read these. They are so hilarious. So while they're still up, if you want to come by and read them, they are so funny. I mean, the things they come up with just crack me up. I don't know if on yours, I guess you can't zoom in on them, but they're worth the read. They're hilarious. And then, mine went to sleep. And then some more writing that we're doing in 2nd grade. And some of this writing in 2nd grade is completely unprompted. I mean, the students are writing the stories that long. I was in a 2nd grade classroom today. One of their stations in Reader's Workshop was to write about Abraham Lincoln, and they had already filled up the whole page, and then they were asking me more facts about Abraham Lincoln, and they were telling me things that I did not even know. So anyway, so we had to do some research while I was in there today to find some more things for them to write about. But exciting stuff. Yes.
All right. Okay. Are we going to start with our Teacher of the Month? All right. So this is Miss Burkett. Miss Burkett is a first-year teacher at Venus Primary and first-year teacher altogether. So she is fantastic. As you see in this picture, they were a fun group to visit. From her peers, she goes above and beyond to make teaching fun for her students. She interacts and plans fun activities for them to do while learning. And she overall has a great relationship. And so she's been a wonderful addition to our campus. And if you follow our Facebook page, you'll notice she was the one who dressed up as a 100-year-old on the 100th day of school. So she played that part from about 7:45 to 3:30. She never stopped. It was a fun day for the kids. And then, our staff members of the month were our wonderful cafeteria staff. They really truly go above and beyond every day for our students, always greeting them with a smile. They work hard, very welcoming, and so we're just glad to have them at Venus Primary. And then our student of the month is first grade, Oakley Thomas. She is a fantastic little student. She always has a smile on her face. Doesn't matter what's happening, she makes your day worthwhile. Is always supportive to the friends who really need it the most. And so to me, she's just the epitome of what you would want your model student to be and to be representative of our campus. And for events, we have a lot of things happening. All our laptops just went to sleep. Okay. So if you've driven by the primary school, you've seen pictures. We have had the Home Depot team come by with a grant. And so they did add some planter boxes and sandboxes and a patio and some of those things we're still working on, but it's been a great addition to our campus. We kicked off our Big Kahuna fundraiser this spring, so we can continue to purchase items for our students and activities. Just with our fundraising money, we're about to purchase a campus bounce house, so that will be fun. And we are looking at some shade structures for our playgrounds this spring, so we will see. And then attendance incentives. So we we've been working hard to get our students to school, and it's been working. So in the month of February, we've had about 98% attendance. That's huge, like fantastic. And so this week, thankful to the elementary PTO, they let us borrow their bounce house, and so we celebrated our students campus wide. And then every month we are going to do like a campus whole group incentive party celebration to get our students to school. So it's been a lot of fun. We've also celebrated the 100th day of school, the 101st day of school. We were bombarded with Dalmatians all throughout the campus. It was fun watching our students dress up. Valentine's parties were fantastic because we got to have our families in the building. And last week, the Venus Fire Department came and visited us. So our pre-K team, the kiddos had a great time with them. And then this week, we have Allie the Alligator, the Tooth Fairy, is going to come visit all our friends. And then Kids Heart Challenges on Friday. So we stay busy at the primary, surprisingly. And then, as you notice, we do have an opportunity for a grant to bring some fruit trees. So this was just kind of applied just to see if we can get a few trees. However, now they're wanting to bring in over 40 trees in hopes of an opportunity of building like a small little orchard for all, pre-K through 12th grade, get our ag kids involved through the high school, middle school. And so this foundation is pretty significant. They are large. They work worldwide to bring small orchards to rural areas and areas of need. And they would like to do this on May 22nd and make it a community event and get our students involved during the school day. We've talked about different locations throughout the district, kind of behind the large playground, by the elementary, but really, truly making it a place where all students can grow and learn. And so it's an exciting opportunity for us. Yes, there we go.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to item number 5, opportunity for public comment, and we do have one speaker signed up, Brittany Buchanan, and I'm just going to just read something here real quick. Audience participation at the board meeting is limited to a portion of the meeting designated to receive public comment in accordance with this policy. All other times during the board meeting, the audience shall not enter into discussion or debate on matters being considered by the board unless requested by the presiding officer. Individuals who wish to participate during this portion of the meeting designated for public comment shall sign up, in which they have with the presiding officer or designee before the meeting begins, as specified by the board's procedures on public comment, and shall indicate on the agenda item on topic of which to address the board, which you have done. Except as permitted by this policy, the board procedures on public comment on individuals' comments to the board shall not exceed 5 minutes per the meeting. So if you want, you can come up with that little speaker right there. There's a little button on there to the right. It lights up red, and you've got
I did learn my left and right in school.
hold on 1 second. We'll give you.
I got you. I forgot my job. I just wanted to, I saw the results come out from the voting and on the 4-day school week. And I want to make sure that we as parents, and especially in the high school, whose kids are in the extracurriculars, because I don't think that was explained very well in the survey. It asked us if we would be able to get our kids to extracurriculars, but it wasn't explained like, hey, for away games, your kid may need to be here at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I know for my job, I'm not going to have the means to bring my kid to school at 1 o'clock to go to an away game. But I did take that into consideration when I was voting. And Texas is still going to be a Friday night lights, state. Our games are not going to change. They're still going to be on Thursday and Fridays, all of our varsity. And so I just want to make sure y'all are taking in really strong consideration of the Tuesday through Friday. And I also want to make sure that our teachers aren't forgotten. I get they're going to still probably have to work 5 days a week, but I'm hoping they get extra days too, because they work so hard to support our kids. So that's all I had.
Do you want me to respond to that? Or not?
No, we can do the comments.
When we do our.
Yep. Okay, we're going to item number 6, presentation of annual required Venus ISD Police Department 2022 racial profiling report. Chief Woods.
Good evening, board members. This is just an annual report to the board by the state. It's already been submitted to the state for the racial profiling report. The preliminary is just making sure that it's in the minutes and that y'all are aware of the racial profiling report. If you had a chance to look at it, it breaks it down into, race and sex for each kind of item in there and everything else too. That's one of the reports that I sent to the state right there. The other one breaks it down into percentages of Hispanics, African Americans, whites, male, female, and everything else. This past year I did 9 total traffic stops, and the percentages really reflect what our community is and everything else too. So if there was an issue with it, the state would have said, hey, we look like you're doing racial profiling on these people and everything else, but it matches up with what our demographics are. So, does anybody have any questions regarding that report?
Do not. Thank you. Going to go to item number 7, the presentation of student growth performance updates.
It went off. There we go. This is your student growth report for February. Particularly, we're looking at our student outcome goals 4 and 5, which is reading and math for 6th and 9th grade. So we're looking at our middle of the year MAP results. Those were taken at the secondary level in January. So if you look at the first graph, the percentage of students in grades 6 through 12 performing at the 40th percentile or above in reading increased by 8%. From the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. But the percentage of students performing at the 60th percentile or above actually decreased by 3%. So according to the MAP growth, approximately 31% of middle school students are projected to meet grade level expectations on STAR reading. And let me remind you that, remember that there are approaches, meets, and masters. So this is specifically looking at meets or above. It does not include approaches. We can scroll down. So the yellow bars, approximately 50% of students met or exceeded their expected growth in reading from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year. So it shows you all of the grades. You can see at the bottom, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. That red line in the middle, that's your 50th percentile. NWEA does say that about 50% of students is very reasonable. If you're trying to grow, you want to push it to 60. So looking at that graph, you can see that 7th grade, we were almost at 60%, so they did an outstanding job, and that's really across the board as we look at these. 8th grade did well as well. 9th grade was right there, and we did have some lower numbers, 11th and 12th grade, which we will talk about on the next page as well. The one at the top? Yes, ma'am. All right, so this next graph is basically our goal. The way that it's worded is we are trying to close the gap between where we are and what the state is. So we actually want to meet them, or we want to do better than they are. We want to be better. So the district's goal is to close that gap. In order to meet that goal, we need students performing closer to the norm. So we're trying to catch up to meet what the state's performing at, and then we actually want to get better than they're doing as well. Compared to the beginning of the year, the gap between the average grade level RIT score and the average norm RIT score has decreased slightly in 7th and 9th grades and increased in other grades. So again, we see 7th and 9th grade stronger results, and the other grades, it has actually decreased slightly. Decreased from the beginning of the year? Yes. Which again, in this graph in particular, we want it to decrease. We want the gap to decrease, right? Increasing is actually not what we want. We don't want the gap to get bigger. We want the gap to get smaller.
This is better. The other graphs are not better.
Well, looking, this one, some of them are. So if you look, we kind of did some analyzing of the data. So we see some definite grade levels that have weaknesses. So why are we looking at weaknesses? And in analyzing that with the campus principals and district leadership team, Looking at that, specifically, these are reading results. So looking at our secondary reading teachers and our secondary reading departments. At the beginning of the year, 14 out of 15 positions in reading or English were filled. So we were missing a teacher since the beginning of the year. 7 of these teachers are not fully certified. Throughout the first semester, 2 of the high school English teachers resigned, and a third resigned shortly after the beginning of the second semester. So if you look at the grade levels, for example, 11th grade is where you see the biggest gap. The juniors at VHS have not had an English teacher all year. They have had 2 English teachers for a few weeks each time that both resigned. And right now they're being very creative to cover those classes, including administrators are going in and teaching those classes so they can make sure that they are getting taught. But they have not had a consistent teacher basically the whole first semester. And so you can really see that reflected in those results.
So I have a question. So the first, to make sure that I'm understanding, so the first semester, they didn't have a teacher at all, yet the scores have gotten worse, but there really wasn't a change. They didn't have a teacher in the beginning.
So this right here is middle of the year. This graph right here is middle of the year only. So yes, it would be measuring what they did in the first semester, but this is only, this right here, the green is us and the gray is the state. So the fact that there's such a big gap there, our gap got bigger, basically. The juniors,
Beginning of the
yes.
year to the middle of the year, but we haven't had any change in the number of teachers in the classroom. We're where we started at.
Right, but
Or we lost more in 11
because MAP, no, we actually lost them. We've lost 2-3 teachers. And in the same classroom, yes. One would come for a few weeks, they resigned. We would go through a hiring process, and again, during the middle of the year, the applicants that you have for teaching positions, especially English certified teaching positions, are very, very, very few and far between. So then they would hire another teacher, get them in, then they resigned after a few weeks, and so then there was a few weeks with a long-term sub. And so during the first semester, the juniors particularly were the ones that were affected by that. It did affect some of the other classrooms, but it was less intermittent. The juniors, it was an English 3 classroom. So, yeah. Any questions about this reading?
Not at the moment, but sorry if I need to interrupt. I have an emergency and I need to go. So I'll let you guys know if I get.
Anything we can do to help you?
Not at the moment, I don't think. I mean, I'm fine personally. I have other issues.
Sure. Thank you, sir.
So be careful. All right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. All right, so we're gonna continue. We're gonna look at math. So again, our student outcome goal number 5 is worded the exact same way, except that we're looking at math. And again, we word it in grades 6 and 9. So we're looking to decrease the gap between the percentage of Venus ISD students in grades 6 and 9 that score meets or above on STAR Math or EOC Algebra 1. So looking at this first graph, the percentage of students in grades 6 through 12 performing at the 40th percentile or above decreased by 4%. And the percentage of students performing at the 60th percentile decreased by 3%. According to MAP growth data, approximately 21% of middle school students are projected to meet grade level expectations in STAR Math. Our 9th grade students did not take an Algebra 1, they took a regular MAP growth assessment. But looking at that data, we can conjecture 20% of 9th grade students are on track to meet grade level in Algebra 1. All right, looking at the yellow graph. So approximately 44% of secondary students met or exceeded their expected growth in MAP math. So again, it's reasonable to expect 50% of students to meet or exceed their growth goal. This doesn't mean that the students that didn't make this didn't grow. They still could have grown some. They could have improved, but not met their expected growth or exceeded it. So we see 8th grade actually took the prize for math. So 8th grade was over 50%. And then you can look, some of our weak areas there would be 6th grade and 12th grade, which we will also talk about 12th grade in just a second. So we're looking for this one. Our goal is actually 60% of students to meet or exceed their MAP growth projections. That's what we're looking for so that we can close that gap. And looking at the bottom graph, the district's goal again is to close the gap. So looking at this, we need students performing closer to the state norm, or in best case scenario would be actually higher than it. Compared to the gaps in the beginning of the year testing, the gaps between the average grade level RIT score and the average norm RIT score for the corresponding grade levels have decreased slightly in 8th and 9th grade. So in 8th and 9th grade, we actually closed the gap a little bit. But in all of the other grades, they actually increased. So again, in analyzing this data, we sat down with campus leadership and principals, and we looked and said, where are our biggest gaps here? What are we looking at? Looking at that, you're looking at 11th and 12th grade, particularly for math. So in the first semester of 22-23, we had 1 unfilled secondary math position. Of the 12 positions that were filled, 2 were teacher apprentices and 2 were not certified. We have had some issues in maths, particularly in 11th and 12th grade. While we had a teacher of record, we had several medical leaves and leaves of absence in the first semester that particularly affected 11th and 12th grade. For particularly 11th grade math, their teachers were not there consistently for the first semester. So again, you can see that reflected in the data, especially in that 11th grade bar.
I have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So if you go back up to the freshmen, and you said that we're only looking at 20% of them to meet?
Meet, not pass. So passes, approaches are higher. Meets is your second step up. So right now, based on the MAP data, we're looking at 20% meets or higher. That doesn't mean pass. That's not approaches or higher. Just meets is how we worded the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're looking for more that are going to
Yes.
exceed the meets.
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's still not where we want it to be, though. We're still not. That's why we're looking at it. That's why we're looking at the data and seeing where we can make some changes. What improvements can we make? What adjustments do we need to make? I know the campuses are working hard, the principals, because they were waiting for this data to see where are we at. This is kind of our mid-year checkup. Where are we at? What can we do now? All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to item number 8, consider approval of 4-day instructional week. Mr. Hopper?
Okay. Well, we've been talking about this issue for some time, so I'll just cover over it briefly, and then open it up for discussion as you wish, Mr. President. So one of the things that comes out in the report that Crystal just gave is the importance of consistent staffing. Everything that we do here in school, we're here because kids need an education. Otherwise, none of us would be here. The most important people we have in this district are those who are with those kids in the classroom day in and day out. The rest of us have superfluous jobs. But we have to have people in there who are going to be who are going to be working with our students on a day-to-day basis that we can rely on. We have been very blessed. We have several teachers that fall into that category of just go above and beyond. I mean, they're absolutely called to do what they do. But the plain and simple fact is there are more teaching jobs in the state of Texas and in the country, and at this point I would say the world, than there are teachers. Certainly certified teachers and qualified teachers, and those who do it for the right reasons. Those are the teachers we want in our classrooms. And so this is not a situation that anybody wants. This is not a situation that anybody would has asked for. As a matter of fact, we talked about this briefly last spring about the 4-day instructional week, and thought, well, gosh, there's just not enough data out there to support this as a viable means of doing this, to provide instruction for our kids. Then we proceeded to go through one of the most difficult hiring seasons I've ever, the absolute most difficult hiring season I've ever seen in my life. And this district cannot go through another one of those and maintain viability. However, this is not an easy task. This is a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift for any district. Not every district is doing this, and not every district should do it. And so we're here to decide tonight whether or not our district should do it. So we did pass out we did go through the survey, and let me, as I go through the survey, if I may respond to what our parent has brought up this evening. So thank you for bringing up that concern. We truly mean it when we say we want to partner with parents. This particular issue, one of the things we didn't want to do, we didn't want to confuse people by saying we're going to run buses on Fridays for those practices. We certainly didn't want that to be out there. But I've met with our coaches. In fact, even met with them today. And first off, I didn't even have to meet with them because basically they said, well, sure, that's exactly what we're going to do, which is nobody is going to need a ride and not have one if we can help it. It's just not going to happen. And I said, I can tell you, as a former coach, my kids are not going to be at the house while we're having practice just because they don't have a ride. We're going to see that gets done. And when it doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, our coaches do that and our sponsors do that very same thing. So I didn't want to confuse people by thinking, hey, they're going to run a bus route, because that's not what we're going to do. But so many times what it means is, Bobby will, his mom will stop and pick up Jimmy or something like that. A lot of that happens. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't matter. We will go and make sure that student has a ride. What we don't want is the kid who doesn't want to ask or doesn't want to say something. We want them to feel very comfortable to do so. I was that kid that lived 5 miles out of town, and my mama's car got wrecked when I was in school. I didn't want to ask anybody, so I did walk 5 miles to go to two-a-days because I wasn't going to ask. And about the third day, somebody said, "Hey, Hopper, you need a ride?" And I said, "Yeah," but I wasn't going to say anything. So I know those kids are out there too, but we don't want those kids to miss out because of that. So I know that's very informal, but that's how that would operate. And I hope that makes sense to you.
No, it does. I want to make sure that
Yes, ma'am.
taken care of.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
not fair to those kids if they keep.
Oh, no. No, we don't. We try way too hard to get those kids out for extracurriculars than just to turn a blind eye to that, and because we want those kids out there. So we will do everything possible to make sure that happens. And was there another issue? Or was that?
I was concerned about, because I've heard other districts that have gone to 4 days, that
Uh-huh.
the teachers aren't getting the 4 days. They're still having to be here 5 days.
Okay.
And I understand that's going to be happening, but is it going to be consistent, or is it going to be that they're going to get some 4 days just because they deserve it too?
Yes,
They
ma'am.
don't need to just be here.
Yes, ma'am. Very good point to make. And so one of the things that you're going to see, the calendars that we're looking at, and one of the things that we've talked about is that we can't talk out of both sides of our mouth on that. And so if it's going to be a 4-day instructional week, it needs to be just that. But also, we do need to have that time for those teachers to recoup, because what we don't want to do is to put, teachers are like anybody else right now. We're tired. Everybody is. All of society is. The last thing you want in front of your kids is a tired, worn-out teacher. And so what we want to do is make sure that happens. So to answer your question, we have proposed calendars that show one Friday a month, or one day a month, whichever it's Monday or Friday, whatever it is, in professional development. And the rest of them wouldn't be here unless they want to be here.
And that's not going to affect their pay.
No, that is correct. That is correct. So no, it's a valuable commodity, to have those teachers. In fact, this is a situation where what we're looking at is that teacher having the ability to, because what happens right now is they'll go home on Fridays and they're they're just taking armloads of papers to go and grade and do the things, and they're working like crazy. So they'll do that on Saturdays or Sundays, whatever it is. But they've also got families of their own, so they're going to spend time for their families. And at some point, we talk about personalized instruction, and so many of our teachers do a great job of this. In other words, they're going to sit down with their classroom, and I'm going to teach a lesson on multiplication. But I want every teacher to know their kids by their strengths, by their needs, and by their unique characteristics. And the reason for that is when I'm teaching multiplication, I'm not teaching multiplication. I'm teaching Susie and Bobby and Jose, and that's who I'm teaching. So it's not the subject, I'm teaching kids. Well, those teachers can't do that if they don't have the time to sit down and consider, this kid's interest, how am I going to teach that to this kid? Because it's not going to be the same to that kid. That's what we're trying to make sure our teachers have. And if we do that, the teachers who are truly called to this, man, that's just like pouring gasoline on their fire. So that's the thing that we want to do. We want to provide the best environment possible for our teaching staff. We're not going to be able to compete as far as the top salaries and things. We're like at Midlothian and Mansfield. We know that. So we have to play on a different playing field, and that playing field is work environment. So we want to make sure that they have the time, the tools, the training, and the teamwork to do what they need to do. And the good teachers, the ones who really work hard, what I don't want people to think is that should the board decide to go this direction, this is not a situation where they're going to take and have a 3-day weekend of putting their feet up. They're going to now get their work done and then put that creativity into their classroom. You're going to find a teacher that's refreshed and ready to roll on Monday or whatever that day is. That's what you're going to find. And it also makes it to where our principals can hold our teachers to a standard of those scores that you saw up there. That's not good enough for Venus. It's not good enough for our kids. Our kids are better than that, and our staff is better than that too. So we want to provide them the opportunity to get them there. But we have a principal over here who is now teaching English every day in the classroom because he can't find anybody else to do it. We have another principal right beside him who's in the classroom every day practically, subbing for classes. She never knows what classes she's going to be in. And each one of these principals over here have done that. That's not a situation we want for our district. And so that's the only reason we're having this discussion. So, I guess for lack of going over this and beating this to death, we can see the stuff that's in front of us. The first page of the survey shows the preferences. It says 4-day instructional week, total community responses. And we had quite a few responses. Community responses were 749. And so we had those that wanted whether it was a Thursday, a Monday through Thursday, or Tuesday through Friday. And basically you had about 64% that wanted a Monday through Thursday, and then another 20.2% that wanted Tuesday through Friday, and then 15% that didn't care one way or the other. So we see that. So the next one is the survey question: if you are a parent or guardian, what child care methods do you currently use? And it shows that about 9% have paid child care. And then we have about 20% that have a sibling or a friend. 9.5% they will alter their work schedule on those days when we have PD or something and they need to have something done. About 22% say that, I'm at home so I don't need anybody, and another 39.5% say that they just don't need anybody. Okay. The next one is if a 4-day instructional week were to be adopted, how would you solve your pre-K through 5th grade child care needs? And we have 35% that say that, basically referring to the data we just went over, that they would use that. 55% said none needed, and then again about 9.5% that said they don't have a solution for that. So the next one is if a 4-day instructional week were to be adopted, how likely would you be to participate in a meal pickup program on the day we're not in school? And so you have about 14%, 14.5% very likely, 12% somewhat likely, and then you have 17% that's neither likely or unlikely, and then you have 47%, and then another 7% that say either very unlikely or somewhat unlikely. Then the next one is what would your child's participation in extracurricular, co-curricular activities be impacted by the lack of school provided transportation, and which is what we were just addressing. And so we see about 10.5% that say yes, it would be, and another 10.5% that says well maybe, So the next one on here. How do you feel about a 4-day instructional week for students next year? So we have 54% strongly in favor, 13% moderately, and then 13% no preference, and then we have 6% moderately opposed, and then another about 12% strongly opposed. So those are the data, and we've seen those numbers out for a bit. And so at this point, I would just kind of pause and I will say that one of the things that we have done after doing the survey, we've gotten quite a few comments about how early that day was, because what we did was we compressed the calendar a little bit, and so we had to make the day a little bit longer. So when we did that, we talked about a 7:25 start time. And that, more than anything else, was kind of the ping that seemed to be hitting more than anything else. And so what we did was we went back and said, well, what can we do with that? And so one of the things it says is that two of the calendars are, okay, we'll look at those calendars in just a bit. The second bullet point, based on feedback concerning very early start day, the proposed start time has been moved back to 7:45 a.m. in order to compensate for the loss. So we had 150 days. Now, if we do that, we have to go to school, instead of days, we have to go to school 75,600 minutes, okay? You can put those minutes however you want to. So with that, if we go from starting at 7:25 to 7:45, now we can add 3 days and go from 150 days to 153 days and go back to a very similar start time to what we have right now, so we don't have kids starting so early. And still end at 4 p.m. And so that's a total increase of the school day of how much, Mr. Moore? Do you recall right off?
Well, ultimately, the preliminary projection that we talked about was 505-minute school day with a 7:25 to 3:45. By adding the 3 days, it pushes it to a 7:45 to 4 o'clock, which is 495 minutes of instruction.
495 minutes, and how many minutes do we have right now?
460.
460.
So we're talking
35 minutes.
35 minutes.
Okay.
35 additional minutes on a school day?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And the days that are affected here are September 8th, December 8th, and January 19th. Those are,
Time be increased, like each class time be increased? When you're talking about class at middle school, high school?
yes, each class time. Now, at the secondary campuses, about how many minutes per class period are y'all figuring? It's about 5 or 7 minutes.
It was 51.
Yeah, I was gonna say 51 or 52 minutes.
Currently our class periods are 46. So if you take the number of class periods, divide that into 30, then that's the increase of each individual class period. The one thing that we had to jockey around a little bit was to match up our lunch periods, but we're talking 5 to 6 minutes per class period, and for a teacher, 5 minutes more of teaching is huge.
How many total minutes do we go now, total for the year?
460.
For the year.
For the full year?
So we've how many?
Well, let me explain.
Please, yeah.
When we made the transition to minutes from instructional days, it used to be 180 instructional days, and when the legislation changed it to minutes, if you remember back 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, every school calendar had bad weather days. So you had 3 or 4 bad weather days built into your calendar in case it snowed or sleeted or whatever. One of the things that went away with that is the fact that we built banked minutes into our calendar so that we go above and beyond the 75,600. So in case, just like Ice-Mageddon, we had to take some days off, we had 7.6 days banked that we were able to take off. We still have 3.6 days banked should something else happen.
So how many scheduled minutes a year do we have?
He'll get back with you.
Yeah.
And then how many minutes are we, with this, how many minutes will we have?
Again, we'll just have to.
Let me get my little handy dandy
Because we
calculator.
can kind of assume we're probably
Well,
gonna have
well,
ice this year and
here's the
next year.
difference between the two,
Mhm.
is because of the limited number of days that we're attending, we can't bank the number of minutes to give us 4 or 5 days. So if you look on that
We have
calendar,
ice days. Or
we
bad weather days.
built in bad weather days so that just in case, and those were the PD days that we had originally on the calendar.
We didn't have to do that before because we had more time built in than what we needed.
Your Fridays are your bad weather days.
What was it?
Yes, sir.
167 this year.
Is this gonna affect how much
Instructional
time
days.
students miss?
I thought it was
Or is
172.
that gonna stay the same?
Because
That's-
when we went to minutes, it was like you couldn't miss more than, if I remember correctly, when that happened 5 years ago, like, you couldn't miss more than 10 class periods. Something like that, like.
Yes, ma'am. It's different on the secondary too.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. And so that is dictated to us by our legislature.
Okay.
And so literally, kids got to go 90% of the time. And so that's where that falls. And they've got to the point now where if that's violated, schools, of course, can file charges or take them to truancy court and that sort of thing. If a school doesn't do that, the court's going to want to know why you didn't. So,
Right, no, I understand that. What I'm
yes,
asking
ma'am.
is changing the amount of time that they are allowed to miss.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
Not the percentage. Not the percentage. It's still 90%.
I like to
Yes, ma'am.
compare.
And I will tell you that the legislature.
79, 120.
I will tell you that the legislature has not. They don't know quite what to do with this four-day thing just yet. It's fairly new, and we're in the middle of a legislative year right now. I don't know that this has been even brought up as an issue to them. So I don't see it changing for that. They're probably still going to say 90%. Whatever 90% is of your particular semester.
And how many minutes in a day?
Which one? Tuesday or Thursday or?
Just, I don't care, just any day.
400
Our
460
normal
days is
for this calendar is 460.
yeah, 460.
Minutes, okay.
Okay. For the proposed 4 days, it's 495, which gives us 135 minutes over. So, I mean, we're cutting it fairly close, but we also built in.
I'm not worried about that. What I'm worried about is our scores are really, really bad, and we're now gonna be going 3,385 less minutes. So that was the reason for my questions.
I'm gonna throw this at you. You brought it up. If we can't get teachers in the classroom to teach our kids,
I know, the 4 days gonna fix it all.
the number of minutes are going to matter.
Right.
I hear you, the 4 days gonna fix it all.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, and please, I do want to. I know we sort of have a little fun with that. Guys, a 4 day is not going to fix anything that good teaching is going to have to take place. So this is not unicorns and rainbows. This is going to be a heavy lift. It's going to be a heavy lift if that's what we choose to do. And no, it's not perfect. But what it does is it gives our principals some tools to use. So yes, sir.
And just understand, this is brand new for us. Just like anything else, and if some of you that's been on the board for a while, through the course of the year, we've had to go back in and reapprove a school calendar because of some adjustments that we made. So ultimately, as we kick this thing off and get into it, we might step back and go, we missed that one. I won't say anything to you, Liz, but anyway.
But
There may be some adjustments that have to be made as we get into this, but this is the basis of what we're looking at kicking off.
yes, sir. Tasha.
So,
If I may throw this out. We are depending on visiting with other school districts that have tried this and seeing what their results have been. Those school districts, we spent the day at Mineral Wells, who started it. They were in the same boat we are, losing teachers to surrounding districts who were going to a 4-day. When they implemented the 4-day, they quit losing their teachers. So as Mr. Hopper alluded to at the start of this, that is the reason that we're doing this, to try to attract those teachers.
And retain our current ones.
I was going to say, for me, like I said, having the few years I've been on the board, one of the biggest things that I've seen is just the struggle since post-COVID, even during COVID, was we just can't find teachers, and I hear it from the administration all the time. There's just nobody applying. Now is that, for me, it's not always that's one part of it, you know, in the whole difficulty of trying to, you know, what do we do now that post-COVID and things have really started to change, and finding good quality teachers, just finding anybody that just wants to go into the profession is seeing a big drop off. So, and that's one of the biggest concerns I've had. But, you know, one of the things for me is, and I've looked at this thing all different angles, and I understand that, you know, this is not something that's, you know, easy, because I understand there's going to be some people that it's going to affect, and and I understand that. But on the other part of it, I also understand that, you know, one of my roles is to make sure that as a district, we are providing the best education we can for our students and our community. And by doing that, we have one of those jobs that's, you know, I take very serious, is trying to be able to bring in the best teachers that we can find, and be attractive to those teachers. And that's getting very difficult right now, because here in the last year or so, a lot of districts across the state had give huge raises, and unfortunately, we're not a district that can keep up with that, and it's very difficult for us. So, how do we find other ways to attract, you know, teachers to come to our district, or better yet, retain the ones we have, because it makes it very hard when other surrounding districts are upping their pay significantly, and then ours, it's really hard for us to go, hey, stay here with us, you know, and don't leave us. But that's the struggle I see all the time, and it's frustrating. But doing this 4-day, to me, I think opens an opportunity for us to not only attract some teachers, because like I said, I know just the notion of going 4-day is very attractive to a lot of people. But on the other side of it, I know that there's also teachers that we currently have that would love to stay in our district because of the 4-day. So it's very difficult, and I understand, again, there's going to be some hardships for some of our parents in the community. I get that. And I think, well, I know we have a great administration that is going to work their tails off to try to address every one of those concerns and lessen that hardship on a lot of those, what the parents have, you know, mentioned in some of the comments in the surveys. So I'm confident that we can work through a lot of those concerns. So that's all I've got.
Can you talk a little bit about the lunches?
Yes, you have a piece of paper in front of you at your station. One of the things we've tried to do is take a look at how is this going to affect fiscally, you know, from a financial perspective, you know, our cafeteria. And I will tell you, we're going to give you the best numbers that we can possibly give you. And still yet, you know, this is kind of like nailing an egg to the wall. And so what we're going to give you is a kind of a worst case scenario kind of a deal. We consulted with, of course, our food service director, Tina, has just been doing this for years, and she's a master at it. We also consulted with those who've been doing the 4-day, and because, again, that's a road that we haven't been down, but they have, and sort of put those together and try to figure out what that would look like. So what we're looking at here is because the message we keep getting back from these 4-day schools currently is that it's kind of a wash. You know, it's you know, it's maybe a little bit above or a little bit below, but it's kind of a wash. Well, that doesn't mean anything as far as numbers are concerned. So I want to look at numbers. So anyway, if you take a look at this sheet, it says average daily revenue. And so you can see that we figured what our average daily revenue is. That's a round number, and that's a little bit of we sort of rounded up. I think that was 8,000 some odd, wasn't it, Stephen? And Friday meals not served. So this means that there's 19 Fridays that we would not be serving meals. the proposed calendar. And so that the amount not claimed then for the next year would be $171,000. Then we have average daily breakfast count. That's 910. Well, that is roughly about 40% of our students. Okay, so then we look at average breakfast cost per tray. That's $1.20. That's what it costs the district. Average daily breakfast cost then total is going to be $1,092. Over 19 days, that's $20,000 and $748. Then we look at lunches. Average daily lunch count is 1,620 lunches. That's about 70.4% of our student population. Average lunch cost per tray is $2.20. Average daily lunch cost then was $3,272. So in 19 days, that's a loss of $62,175. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so on the breakfast, I know we have that in here, but I thought our whole district was getting free. Is that not the case anymore?
No.
That is true. We do provide breakfast for everyone, but there are only 910 that are taking the breakfast, so that's all we're able to claim. So if we had 2,000 people eating breakfast, we would be able to claim 2,000. But the average is about 910.
This is reimbursement number, not money taken at the cash register.
Well, I guess here's my question on this. You know, we have a lady that's been doing this for 25 plus years. Why would we not have her presenting this tonight
Well,
to answer these questions? I mean,
we've gone over all those numbers with her. I mean, she could be here.
was she asked to be here? I mean, I
didn't-
think
I
this
didn't
was
ask her to
probably a
be
little
here.
bit hurtful to her that we didn't do this.
I don't know, we talked with her even today, Stephen, did. I don't know that, anyway, she didn't express
Y'all
it.
didn't give everybody else's presentation tonight, so I'm not sure why y'all want to give hers.
Like, again, we went over that with her today, and you know, if there's a need to have somebody here, then I typically ask them to be here. And I didn't want to impose on her. I mean, she would do it, but I didn't want to
She would
impose
love
on
to do
her.
it.
So, yeah.
So, I don't know, myself, on this portion right here, I'd like to make a motion that we table this little spot until a time when she could come and give this.
Well, is the, yeah, that's like I said, I don't understand, I mean, this is kind of separate in a way, I mean, from the overall part of it.
I actually just have a question about the numbers. I have two questions. I'm looking at the average daily breakfast count, which is 910. That's how many we serve in a district, right? The average breakfast cost per tray, that's what it costs us to serve. So is that not provided to us for free? Because we then give it to our students for, do we absorb the cost and then give it to our students for free?
So that's what it costs us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then, so that's how that works, right, Steve?
Well, I mean, we're asking him, we could be asking her.
Yeah, and I met with Tina probably, I don't know, 2 or 3 times just in the last couple of days. And I had some of the same questions too. So the $1.20 is what we pay for the food that goes on the tray. Once they serve those, so she serves 910, she turns in a reimbursement for 910 meals at whatever the reimbursement rate is right now. I think it's for breakfast, the average for free or reduced, I think is around a little over $2, like $2.02, something like that. And so she receives that money to cover the cost of the food that she's already purchased. So the reimbursements are about a month or so behind.
So really, it's not costing us anything. I mean, we're having
Right.
having to put the money up, but we're essentially getting the money back. So this is really,
Right.
I mean, I don't even know that this should be on our sheet because it's really not. We're not losing any money. We're actually getting a little bit back.
Well, if you look at the box down at the bottom, the $82,923, That is the total breakfast cost and total lunch cost over those 19 days. So that's actually a savings because we're not having to spend that. So that is a positive number down there. So because we're not serving on those 19 days, we don't have to spend that money. And in turn, we don't have to make a claim against those 19 days. So that ends up being a savings, the $82,000.
And then I see, so I'm looking at $9,000 is what we're bringing in daily, is what she's saying that we're making daily. I see 1,092 on breakfast, and I see 3,272.40. But are we saying that half of that, $4,635.60, we're selling in other items as like snack bar? I mean, to me, my question.
Where the 9,000's coming from.
Right. So I'm looking at 4,635. That is half, if not more or less, depending on how well I mathed. But my question is I see these numbers. If we're selling a lot of these items, do we not need to then focus on what we're serving daily to see if we can increase the quality of what we're buying, to see if we can't impact that number? Is that making sense? Because I'm looking at half. Half of our revenue is coming from what our kids are purchasing, but really half of it is what's coming from our additional items.
Because this is only what we're paying.
But again, I think if we're gonna have this discussion, we ought to have the lady here that oversees all that.
So can we ask her to be in here?
We can,
Or,
the next, yeah, I mean, that's just part of it, but again,
I was really wanting to know about whenever I said lunches, I was wanting to know about the 50% that are gonna need a lunch on Friday, the students. That was really
Was that that was the 50%? We had a 50% saying they would need lunch on Fridays.
They either didn't know if they would, and then maybe, and then for sure would, or however the wording was. But it was about 50% that would require a lunch. I was wanting to know
it's,
what the plan.
These numbers are saying that nobody is going to eat
Yeah,
lunch
no.
on Friday.
Yeah, so it's.
Right.
So if we do,
It's
if
only
we do provide
14%
lunch on
cost
Friday,
This is how
these numbers are skewed.
how likely would you be to participate in a meal pickup program? And 17%, 12%, 14% are likely to participate.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's that percentage? Whatever that adds up to.
Twenty-seven percent.
Where are you getting 27?
because you got very likely,
Very
which is
likely.
14.4, and then somewhat likely is 12.7.
Yeah, but didn't you say we count the neither as the?
in this case goes towards the majority, which is they don't need it.
They don't need it, which is the 47.
I say, I mean, okay, so how, I guess my concern is how are we gonna feed those students?
So what we're looking at is, for those kids that would come and pick up a backpack for the weekend, so we're talking to some folks about doing that.
But that, I mean, that'll be a for sure thing. They'll for sure have a meal.
We don't have all the details worked out.
But
yet.
we're gonna figure out something
Yes,
where they
ma'am.
for sure have,
Exactly,
Okay.
which is what these other districts are doing as well.
okay. I just wanna make sure that anybody who needs a lunch or a meal on that day gets it.
Yes, ma'am. And what we have experienced, again, as we've mentioned before, even through our, the meals that we provided, and our food service program did a marvelous job of doing this during COVID. We way over provided for those that were actually picked up. And we went from all these distribution sites down to one, and ultimately took it down here to the high school, because there simply weren't that many people getting lunches. So,
That they would need food, okay.
Yeah.
I just wanna I would just hate for somebody.
absolutely.
yes, ma'am. And it's one of those that too, that, we can sit here and say, we're gonna do this, or we're gonna do that, but until those numbers actually, show, we can plan to do that. We can say, we're gonna have these, a backpack program. Well, great. How many people is that gonna apply to? Or how many people are actually gonna take advantage
Just
of
wanna
that?
make sure we have that.
Yes, ma'am.
option
Yes,
for 'em.
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
exactly right. We're not just gonna leave them there with nothing.
About if anybody on that, thanks, whoever turned on my microphone. What about if, anybody that's coming in for tutoring or something on whatever that day is, how would they get here?
On Friday or Monday.
Or Monday, whatever the day is, yeah.
You'll do that one day.
That's gonna have to be the parents. We're not running buses on that day.
But it
So-
wouldn't be mandatory tutoring.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
So
Targeted instruction, intervention, whatever we're calling it.
they would not be required to be here, but okay. Well, then, I guess my question with that would be, if we're gonna offer it, how would we know how many teachers or how many people to offer for them to come in if we're not going to bus those kids like we would like a summer program? I guess that's my question.
Right. So what we would do, and again, the model that we've seen in other districts is that we would have a sign up, and so parents would tell us, hey, my kid's going to be coming to that, and so we would have a sign up time for them to be able to do that, and that way we could plan for it. If you take the numbers that we've got here on the survey, figuring on the high side, you're looking at about 100 students. Okay. When we do the math on that, is it going to be 100? That's about double the number that they're doing at Mineral Wells, again, with about 1,000 more students than we have. So I think that saying that that's even 100 students, which is probably going to be well on the high side. But at the same time, we had to start with something. So.
But daycare, I know there were some that needed it.
67 families said they would probably
Need some sort of daycare.
67 families.
And we've checked with,
That's now the part that we're talking about here is the tutorial, the pre-K through grade 5. Is that what you're calling daycare?
yes, so whoever's gonna take care of their child because they're at work.
So that's what we're talking. That's what we've been
Yes, that's
talking
what we're
about.
talking about.
Yes,
yeah.
ma'am.
So, but we've reached
We would do
out to
that
somebody.
in-house.
We would do it in-house.
Yes, ma'am. Because other than that, then we're having parents pay for that if that's a direction we go. But we think we can probably do that in-house.
So in-house, gonna eat, we would have those backpack lunches for them also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then how would they get here? They would need to be dropped off,
Yes, ma'am.
like you would at any daycare?
Correct.
Okay, and then who would be doing I'm calling it daycare, but who would be doing the tutoring for these children that need it because their parents are
Right.
gonna be gone?
These are teachers that would choose to do that.
And then how are they gonna get paid? Because it'll be a 5th day,
That's gonna be us. We're just. That's
but it
gonna
would be a
stipend.
stipend or something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
Just as we would for summer school.
okay.
This is for 19 days.
So
Okay.
basically,
So-
we're gonna model it after like our summer school program. We would just model it
Okay.
that way because the teachers
Yes, ma'am.
essentially volunteer for it, but they get paid an additional outside of their. Okay.
Okay, so another question. So we're not going to offer the intervention for the middle school and the junior high to bridge the gap, which we've talked about quite a bit, bridging the gap. So we're not going to offer that. Is that what we're saying? Or is that something that we are going to probably add in a little bit different? But then here's my second question. So when we also have that on Saturday schools, instead of doing Saturday schools, will we change those then to Fridays or to the Mondays instead of the Saturdays?
Okay. These are things we're going to have to get down the road on. I think if we're doing whatever we're doing on Friday, I don't know that we need to do Saturdays. Honestly, that's going to have to be something that we look at as with our campuses. Probably won't have to do that. But what was your first question?
The intervention for the high school and junior high.
Okay, excellent question. And again, that's one of those things that we're just going to have to take a look at and see what we need to do for that. I don't have that answer for you today.
Okay.
The same way they are now with those. Their pay doesn't change, the stipends. Yes, sir.
So if we looked at what kind of cost that the school's gonna have as an impact on what we know on this so far?
We have, again, we've run these numbers right here. I don't have a total for you at this point. But we haven't pulled those totals, have we, Stephen? Okay.
Well, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Ryan, when he was here, said, don't make your determination off of if you're going to save money or lose money. He said it's very marginal. Do I recall him saying that? Like,
No,
because I look at cafeteria, I look at this, and yes, I do see 124,000, but also, if we look in the grand scheme of things, if we're talking about a marginal increase or decrease versus the health and well-being of our students, of our staff, of our community. I mean, these are good. These are good numbers to see, but I can't say that it would sway me one way or another to see that. I mean, that would be any business that is closed on a Friday. You would experience some type of deficit in your profits because you're not operating that day. That is just expected to be. I don't think it's going to be detrimental to our food service program.
Well, what item are we on? Well, and if we do offer the food service and the child care, if we want to call it that, that will be limited to one campus. So then you've got 3 other campuses that you will not be running utilities and such. So there's a potential savings on utilities on these 3 buildings. And maybe you won't even run all the utilities in that one building. You will have certified teachers, but you may only have 30 to 60 kids there. So if you lose a little bit in food service, you may gain it back, or maybe even more, in utility savings there. But I don't think we can base it on monetary value of what we may gain here or what we may lose here. What we gotta be looking at is getting quality teachers for the kids.
Could I, which, oh, it's lit. Can y'all hear me?
There you go.
Okay, here's my view on this. I mean, and they're all legitimate. One is I do think that generally speaking, the community and especially personnel would like this idea. And I can't say I'm against it, but there are so many things we need to consider. One is, first off, there is no proof, because this is too new, there is no proof that we're helping our children. And we're in the business of education. And we're basically becoming the test subject. So even if we start this, we're going to have to be prepared to quit this if it's hurting our children educationally. And then I heard some of the conversation about, losses, like in cafeteria. But and we did promise this, because we've discussed this matter multiple times. We're saying there would be no payroll, people would get paid the same, because we're adding the minutes instead of hours or days, but minutes. And we're going to continue to pay our teachers and everybody. But those that have to work, your coaches and teachers, if it's 3 or 4, maybe we could compensate it through utilities, but maybe not, I don't know. Because we're talking about maintenance and cafeteria and all the teachers. We need to consider how we're going to pay these guys. I mean, who are you going to get to work a 5th day if you're getting paid the same for 4? I don't know if you do it through stipends. Maybe you could stipend teachers that work the 5th day. We have to consider, the coaching staff and anybody that's at work, maintenance. You don't think they're not going to say, everybody's working 4 days but us? And they're all making the same money but us? We're making the same money, but we're working more days. So, we have to be able to explain this, and we have to make sure that, we're compensating those that are doing more.
And
If it's a stipend or whatever, you say, okay, well, extra day is for the sake of numbers, $100 a day stipend on top of your salary, and then we could just rotate teachers or whatever we needed to
anybody that wanted that extra $100, but we have to consider all of this before we make a decision.
Correct.
And we have to be, by all means, willing to reverse it.
Yeah.
If this is the trend in the state and everybody goes 4 days, well, we're right back to where we were anyway. We're ultimately going to have to pay more one way or another, or else we'll always be looking for teachers, because if, and Midlothian hadn't done it yet, but if Midlothian, Mansfield, Arlington, Alvarado, Rio Vista, and everybody does it, it goes back to pay. Well, everybody's 4 days now, how much you paying me? Which is the situation we're in now. And so even if this helps us 1 year, it still could be a short-term issue. And if our kids' test scores go down, it's going to be a real short-term issue with me, because we're about education, and we need to educate our kids. They should get every bit the education I had. And, you know, that's a very important part of it. So there we have so many unanswered questions, and in essence, we're becoming the test dummy, because we don't know what it's going to do to our kids. I mean, our teachers may be spending every Monday, or, you know, if it's Friday or Monday, whichever day you take off, they may be spending every Tuesday reteaching because they done forgot everything. You know, as opposed to, you know, the last argument was going year round. That was the last one since I was on the board. Well, now we're talking about making it shorter. And, you know, the argument about year round was it's going to help the kids stay focused. You didn't lose the summer, you know, while they were off. Now we're actually going in reverse, and they are going to lose a day every week. And we're going to have to find out if we're losing time, if it's not educational time, but educational time in the fact that we're having to reteach every Tuesday because they done forgot everything. And I know they don't forget everything, but they really do have to be reminded of what they're being taught. I mean, I know I did, and I imagine everybody that went to school, you know, forgot something. So these are all very pertinent questions that need to be answered, I think, before we actually make a move. I know we can't not be the test dummy, but we certainly need the payroll and financial questions answered in a at least 90% relevant, understandable way. I'm done. That's it.
Well, let me respond to just one thing, Greg. If everyone around us goes to a 4-day, what would be worse if we are the only one that stays the 5-day and everybody else goes to a 4-day?
Well, I don't disagree, but we're still, I mean, we can go to 4 days for everybody else.
I think we have to focus on what we're dealing with right now. We are dealing with low test scores already, right? We're dealing with challenges in the classroom of our children learning already. Our children are tired already. Our teachers are tired already. That is what we are experiencing today, right now, in this district. And if we continue to go the course that we're going, we haven't been getting better. Just looking at scores in the last 3 years, we have not shown a marked improvement. So as a district, the hand that we're dealt is we don't have the revenue to pay our teachers what a Midlothian or a Mansfield does. We don't have the means. Our city does not have that infrastructure in place to give us the funds to pay our teachers. Our community is footing that bill at a high tax rate. We know that. And so what we have to consider is creative solutions and thinking outside the box on what can we do differently. We cannot continue to do what we do, having teachers who are aides that we're begging to stay in a classroom because you've got some college hours and we've got to put anybody in a classroom. putting anybody in a classroom is not teaching our children. It's just a babysitter. That's essentially what we've put in a classroom, is a babysitter, when, well, we can have a babysitter on a Friday if we really need that type of childcare. But to look at what we're doing right now, we are not making any progress. And so we've got to have the ability to think outside the box and solve for solutions. And you're right, next year, if we say, you know what, it's really hurt us tremendously, do we want to go back to a 5-day? I mean, never say never. It's not like we can't, but we've got to do something. We are not trending in the direction that we want to be trending in. And I think if we don't consider this, we're going to be in a worse situation, just because there are districts within a reasonable drivable distance that our teachers will go to. Our teachers, our administrators, our coaches will go to work for 4 days. And we talk about maintenance, or we talk about other people who support this district. We are talking about a 4-day instruction week. So if maintenance has to work 5 days, that might be a job duty and responsibility of that position. And if they continue to stay and work, then 5 days is what they may have to work, is 5 days. We will continue to compensate them for that work. Janitors work days, nights. They cleaned up after us on a Saturday at 10 o'clock after a BYSA basketball tournament. That is a job duty and responsibility of that role. And so if we have to really start clearly defining what those roles look like and what the expectation is, then we put that out very transparent. When you do this job, this is what is required of you. And if you do a teacher, then 4 days is what's required of you. Our coaches get paid a stipend. They know what is required of them. And they're already doing that now. They're already giving us their all. But if we can give them a Friday morning or a Friday afternoon with their family to eat breakfast and then come up here to then go coach a football game to make them more engaged with our athletes, and I think we really have to consider that as a whole here tonight.
And
Greg,
to agree with you on this issue, it is something I failed to mention, and it's pertinent, is we have teachers teaching now that are not teachers. I mean, if it brings us in teachers, you could benefit from benefiting with 4 days with a certified teacher, or 5 days with uncertified teachers. So, I mean, that is something to look at, but unfortunately, only time tells us, because there's no way we'll know the effect on the education for probably 2 years.
And to
Well,
answer
I mean,
your
we know
question-
what COVID did, just for
We said it's
remote
back so
learning.
far,
I mean, we saw that.
Can I
Go
toss in maybe some anecdotal information? And I haven't asked them for this. But principals, obviously not divulging any names or anything like that. What sort of comments have you gotten from people both in the district and outside the district on this, so that we can have some sort of a predictor maybe of how this might affect personnel and hiring and retention?
Ms. Box and I were just talking a while ago, just with the information out that this is something we are voting on. I had a 11-year science teacher apply for my science position who's called me twice, like she sought me out. I have a certified art teacher that's already talked to me when the art job was posted today. And then she's had
I've had 3 certified teachers who have several years of teaching that have reached out in the past week that said, please let me know, because I will go ahead and put in an application now, even if it means not until the fall. I've also interviewed 2 SPED teachers. I've also interviewed 2 SPED teachers for the position that I've basically had open since September. That said, a couple of them, I said, can you come now? Are you at a charter school, whatnot? Can you get out of your contract now? And they said, well, I really want to wait and see what's going to happen with your 4-day week, but I'm willing to take a huge pay cut to have more extra time with my family. So I've also got some teachers that have said, there are districts closer to my home, because most of our teachers do not live in Venus, that have said other smaller districts closer to my home are looking at going to a 4-day week. If y'all choose to not adopt that, I'm just letting you know, for more time with my family and for my mental health, I may be going to a 4-day week district. I will tell you, I've done this for a long time. Kim's done this. All of us have done this for a long time. Last summer was the hardest I mean, we are basically calling people and begging them to come for an interview. I have never had to sell my campus or our district more than I had to last summer.
And fought your administrator next to you for it.
Yes,
Yes.
and we were constantly calling,
We
texting.
went to blows,
Have you
I'm just
interviewed
saying.
this? Have you interviewed this person? Have
Yeah.
you talked to this person?
Brittany, would you like to?
I've never worked that hard, and we're still not fully staffed.
I do want to say one thing, because I know you were joking a while ago and you said 4 days is going to solve everything. I don't know that 4 days is going to solve everything, but I know not going to 4 day, I lose teachers.
Yeah.
And I don't have teachers to replace them. So that part I know for a fact. So.
To answer your question, Greg, you had asked about the 5th day. How we had talked about that before you got back, and they would get a stipend. It would be handled just like the summer school. So I know that was a question you had in the very beginning. So that was addressed, and it would be taken care of.
Brittany, I'll allow you to comment.
The main question that y'all keep talking to each other about is if we need to do the 4 day as parents. Yeah, we voted on it. Mr. Gregg, Red Oak has voted. All of Ellis County has voted at this point. Everybody around us is going to 4 day. So the question should be vote on it and then say, we want to readdress this at this time next year when we see the midterm results. And are we having progress? And at that point, if we're having progress, we're not re-voting. If we don't have progress, we need to re-vote on what we're doing. But Ms. Kirby's right. We gotta do something, cause like these teachers that are in that classroom, like, and I have a sophomore, you can tell those teachers don't wanna be there when she's coming home and going, I can't even ask a question because I don't feel like my teacher wants to talk to me because they're so tired. My ag advisors are who I call for every subject. Because I don't even talk to the teachers because they're so tired. Because you try and talk to them and they don't know what you said earlier. They don't know my kid. And that's a problem because I still talk to my elementary teachers, I talk to my middle school teachers that I went to school with over 20 years ago. And nothing
So-
nothing we decide on is set in stone. Like
Yeah.
if we talk about we're gonna do food service receiving on Friday mornings, and if that doesn't work, the thing is we have to remain flexible. We can't
Right.
say we're gonna do this and we're never gonna change it because this is new. And when I talk about creative solutions, if we come up with something, or what we really need to do is encourage our parents who are out there posting on Facebook with their concerns to bring those to your campus administrators to come talk to your superintendent. If we don't know there is a need, we cannot solve for it. So being out there and just complaining or conversating about a need not being met, we can't solve or anticipate a need if we don't know that it's there. We can do it as a whole. We can do it off of 749 responses. We have 2,000 students to care for. So continuing the conversation, but whatever we vote on, right, doesn't mean that we can't be brought to another board meeting and say, hey, we need to make an amendment to this. Correct.
Well, the schools
I'm
that
gonna-
y'all have been to, how many of them have showed scores increased?
Y'all went to Mineral Wells.
Some of them have, and
Who's the other one over here, Right Vista?
Yeah.
Which he said he couldn't tell us that.
They didn't have their
That's
scores
right.
just yet because they didn't have.
there's not any long-term.
Yeah.
We have
Right.
some that have shown some growth and some that have not. I mean, it's so here's what I do know, and I think that I think Greg mentioned it a little bit earlier. Give me 4 days in front of quality, as opposed to 5 days. And like I said, we have some very quality teachers right now. But guys, if we have a hiring season again like we had this past year, give me 4 days in front of the good ones, as opposed to 5 days in front of the others. Anytime, and we can make hay with that. But if you don't have the stallions in the stable, you're not going to win the race.
And,
Well-
and I just want to stress, I'm not saying go for it, not go for it. And I'm third generation educators. I mean, that's what I grew up in. So I totally understand the principals, the superintendents. My granddad was superintendent. My dad was a principal. My wife's a teacher in this district. I mean, I understand the situation very well. I mean, and I do mean very well. You know, but there are questions that we really do need to answer as a board, you know, to make this thing work.
Well, here's my question to that. If we go ahead and we vote on the 4-day instruction and we go ahead and vote on that, can we not hash out all of the stuff and fine tune everything in the next couple of months?
Absolutely. In fact,
I mean, we can do that with everything. Yeah, I mean, because we can do all of that. We can do the calendar. We don't have to do anything besides just.
What we're trying to do, and you're exactly right, Amber. What we're trying to do is we're trying to now some of this we absolutely can and we have, and we'll talk about the salaries here in just a little bit because we do have those numbers. But there are nuances of this that we're trying to answer questions with insufficient data tonight. We're not going to know. We have to know the numbers before we can produce actual, figures on some of these things. But in a way, I kind of envy how Mineral Wells did this last May when they voted on it, and they said, we don't have a choice. We have to do 4-day, and we'll figure the rest out as we go. And for the next 2 months, that's what they did, and they opened up in August. Now, is theirs perfect? No, it's not. Just like nobody else's is going to be either. But that's the whole point. You're trying to solve this problem right here, and if these other things would negate it, then that would be fine. But I don't know that they could.
I'm willing to give this 4-day shot, and for that, I'm going to make a motion to approve the 4-day instructional work week. I got a motion, and I got a second by Kirby.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Joe.
I think the motion should include which days that you are proposing and the length of the school day.
So that would be the next agenda item.
Okay.
So which ones we were going to do. So the concept of the 4-day is what we're approving.
Chad and Kirby.
And I got a second by Kirby.
Yep.
All in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Okay. So now we're going to go on to item number 10. Consider approval, administrative professional, Venus ISD police clerical. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. Golly. Jeez. Yeah, I'm like, no, do we want to talk? We don't want to miss that part of that's the most important one, isn't it? I'm sorry. Item number 9. I'm sorry. Whew, man. Consider approval of the 2023-2024 school calendar. I gotta miss that one.
I'm actually going to ask that we table this one for a later date so we can get some more fine-tuned stuff. I'm gonna make that motion.
So motion to table
Okay, I got a-
2023-2024.
Yes.
I think some people are going to want to know.
No.
Are you going to go to school Monday through Thursday or Tuesday through Friday? That question is gonna come up for these people over
Yeah.
there. So I think we ought to know that.
But I also think that even if, we're telling them that we've just approved to go to a 4-day, so they know now that they're gonna have a 4-day instruction week. So I don't know if going ahead and saying right now we're definitely gonna do a Friday or we're definitely gonna do a Monday is going to, I hope it would not persuade somebody in a month if we just come back and visit this in a month.
Let me say, because like I said, even if we approve a concept, a calendar, we can always come back and tweak it or change it if, we get a big uproar on whatever we decide.
But I also think is you're.
Change it and everybody's now made plans.
Exactly, and then you've got parents, that are doing the same thing.
What information do you require to make that decision?
Yeah, I think the survey also said it, 64% was, Monday through, Thursday. To me, that's, yeah.
And I do have the reason why I want to table this because I would really like, and I don't know if the start time, because
I agree.
I know the early start time versus the later start time. I think we went from one extreme to the other. I feel like we should be able to split the middle. Look, I have a young one who's gonna benefit from the later start, but I have an older one who's a freshman who's already at school until 8 o'clock on a band night, and this is gonna put her 8:30 is gonna put her not coming home until 9, and she gets there at 6 a.m. So I know it's 30 minutes, but it's 30 minutes for my kid to get home, shower, and get in bed and sleep. So I'd really like to propose a different time, or just really sit down and hash that out on, can we do 15 on the front and 15 on the end?
Yeah.
And I want to state,
Those are good questions, but if I may, on that, it's not uncommon for us throughout the year to make those changes in the calendar at any point that we say, hey, you know what, we need to make a modification. So I think what happened here, and just based on the survey, I don't have a dog in the hunt one way or the other. I mean, Monday or Friday, either one. Because, you know, as I would intend to put in those days anyway, because it's great to be up here by myself. But my point in that is that, you know, 2/3 said that they had a preference for Friday. If we were to go ahead and do that, the rest of it we can beat out later.
Well, my big thing also is we had 700 parents do the survey, and we have 2,100 students. So we also included the 100 and however many staff that we have here, the 184. So like I said, I just think that this is something that we can hash out. I mean, I don't think that if we were to, I mean, again, it's a board of us, so I mean, we get to.
I'm sorry, you said we had 749 community and how many staff?
Was 100 and something, 163 or something to that effect.
We didn't see those numbers.
Is that not in?
I know that we're in the middle of a discussion, but I just want. I'm not against this. I voted against it for this exact reason. We have no clue what we just voted on.
Exactly.
Where we are literally going to hash it out from this point.
Exactly what I voted on.
Well, no, you don't. You know what you voted on, but we're sitting here, even on the next vote on it, and we're going to be fighting this through. I would have liked to had figures on what I was actually voting on.
We have the figures.
Before.
The figures say that 60-something% are in favor of having a 4-day instruction
Well, I
week.
understand that, but 67% also don't know how anybody's being paid. They don't know what day it is. They don't know any of it.
Well, most of
And
them
that was why I voted
wanted the
against it.
Friday off.
I'm not prepared to make a vote
Right,
that
so-
we're not
I'm
really
with you, yeah.
The rest
really
of it we can hash
prepared.
out.
But now we will be dealing with it, no doubt. I mean,
got a motion by Amber to table.
Pull our staff numbers. 162. How did they vote on that? I mean, we have those numbers.
You want the very unfavorable?
But we still have a motion.
Yeah, so I apologize.
I mean, I can pull my motion.
well, no, you can have a mo-
We don't have a second, so, I mean.
So, okay, I got a second.
but there's still discussion on this issue, and I would like to hear a little more before I vote. And
Go right in.
one thing I would like to know before I voted was what she was fixing to give us. And we have a right to discuss.
Absolutely.
So.
Yes, ma'am, please. Okay, so the question is, we have the community numbers, and so let's talk about the staff numbers now. As far as
Okay,
a
so we'll go in order,
Friday
and I'll
or
give you the
Monday.
exact same numbers that you saw in the same order, questions 1. So on the Monday through Thursday, for staff, this is staff only, yes, we're all, you have 74.7% that would prefer the Monday through Thursday schedule. You have 13.6% that would prefer the Tuesday through Friday, and the 11.7 is a no preference, which in a vote like this goes to the majority. So you are at 86% almost who would prefer the Monday through Thursday.
86% of staff that would prefer that way, and you have 65% of community that would prefer it that way.
And I would say, if we're doing this to hire people, we need to go with what staff wants, because obviously, if they want it, more likely new people
So
want it too.
overwhelmingly majority of your staff and your community both want the Monday through
And if we're going
Thursday.
to accomplish our goal, we need to go with the numbers.
And I might add too, the 749 community responses, no one has ever had those kinds of numbers on any kind of survey in this community in the past, not even close. Not any election. If the 4-day the 4-day schedule were running against any board member, the 4-day schedule would win. Got more votes. Okay?
Now, if I'm stating what seems obvious to me. And I see that there's others that think different. I would love to hear from you right now before we vote, because it'd be the perfect time to help me make up my mind.
Did you want, I can repeat the majority if
I
you need
will
me to.
honestly say, I mean, I don't have a problem. I don't have a preference on the Monday or Friday. I truly do not. My main thing is, and like we said, we can hash out the times, because just like Kirby here, my son is at the school all hours of the night. I mean, all hours of the day. So that's my main concern. If we bring it back and we're not getting out until 4, then he's not getting home out of football. Was 7:30 last year. Now it's going to be 8 o'clock. That puts a lot of time where they have to get schoolwork and eat and showers and everything to that effect. So again,
Mine was just a general question, is if we vote on the calendar, are we voting on the start time? That's
We're
all.
not. No, we're only voting on the
That's all
calendar.
I didn't mean to open a can. That was my question. If we vote on a calendar, are we voting on what the start time was put up there? If that's
Just the
no,
calendar.
then.
Again, so, and like as we continue to debate, I just said that we had a motion and a second to table. So if we're not gonna table it, then like I said, you know, if anybody's, we got the motion to table first and second. Anybody in favor of tabling it? Is anybody?
We have to finish your motion.
We ha- You had your motion and then his motion to table. So if anybody's in favor of tabling, raise your hand.
yeah, so I mean, if it's just me and Jay, then now we go to.
If anybody's against tabling it,
Well,
raise your
you got
hand.
one right there.
Right,
Against.
right. I mean, but that's only 2 to table. So now we're doing another
Against tabling the motion.
Yes, so now you gotcha.
Right, Joe, you got,
Wait,
Miss Liz,
do we have anybody
I
here
need
saying?
help. Oh, you can't help? How do I write it? That's what I'm
I
asking.
need to know, are we tabling the motion?
No.
we're not
No,
tabling the
we're not-
motion.
so I don't
Motion,
have to
motion
put
to
any of
table
that on
failed.
there.
Then you can reinstate the new motion.
Thank you.
Correct. So, so,
Yes, you have to make.
All right, I would like to make a motion to approve the 2023-2024 Venus ISD school calendar to reflect a 4-day instructional week with a Monday through Thursday as or Friday as a non-instructional day.
Okay.
okay.
And I'll second.
All right, I got a motion by Kirby and a second by Tasha. All in favor for the Monday through Thursday?
4, 5, 6, 7, 7.
All opposed? Motion carries.
If we're gonna move forward on this, we have to do that today.
Can you?
Go to item number 10, consider approval, administrative professional, Venus ISD police, clerical, paraprofessional, auxiliary, and technology, 2023, 2024 pay scales.
Good evening, President Sutton, Mr. Hopper, member of the board. So you should have before you the proposed salary schedules. I know it's small up there because I wanted to be prepared for you guys, so I put information for a 4-day week, or if we went just 5-day. Y'all have that? Okay. Oh, be careful. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. Then if you guys have any questions for clarity, feel free to ask, okay? So we're looking first at the clerical paraprofessional 4-day work week pay scale. So we will look at the left side of the page instead of the right side of the page. And what you will see, as we've discussed with the 4-day work week, we are very concerned about retention. So any individual that is currently working in our system, that is on the clerical paraprofessional pay scale, they will receive the same salary that they are receiving now. So they will not see any reduction in their pay. What will happen is that their hourly rate or their daily rate will then increase, so they are able to make the same salary that they are making there. You see that the days have been changed. For instance, the 5-day work week, we would just look at the child care workers. If they were on the 5-day work week schedule, they will have 190 days. Now they will work 169 days. Okay, I was wondering. Okay, and so that's the only change that you will see on the clerical paraprofessional pay scale. Now, one thing to also note, we've already stated that if you're currently in our system, because we are concerned about retention, your pay will not change. But to be a good steward of the finances of the district, I did have to engage in a salary analysis to make sure that the hourly rate that we're bringing any new incumbents in on would not be a financial loss to the district or to individuals as well. Okay? And so that was conducted as well. No.
What you're talking about, the financial responsibility, is there anything that we need to be comparing side by side up on this one?
No, ma'am, because if you're currently in our system, those individuals will receive the same salary. What we are looking at is if we hire someone new and we're paying them $16.33 an hour as a new employee, what impact will that have on us? Will that be a loss? Or then would that be a benefit to the district? So we just have to be.
What I don't want to happen is what happened before, where we had somebody who had been here and they were making less than a new person coming in. We've solved for that. That's not
Yes,
happening.
ma'am. So that's what I'm saying. If you're currently in our system, your pay will not be impacted.
I know that, but we didn't change it where the minimum coming in to somebody who has no experience isn't going to come in making
Right.
more than somebody who's been here 8 years doing
That's
the same
what-
job.
that's
So
what-
I'm an instructional aide and I make $12.50 an hour right now.
Mhm.
I will then go to being an instructional aide making $14.08 an hour. And I'm talking just apples to
Yes,
apples,
yes,
right?
yes, yes,
Because whatever
yes.
that looks like.
Mhm.
But I will move to the $14.08 an hour, and when
Mhm.
we hire someone in, they will not be making more than the $14.08 that I currently make. Is that what you're asking? Like we won't hire a new person in making more than what our existing
Yes.
employees do, because I know that we're shifting to so instead of them making $12.50.
Yes, wherever that individual is on
Okay.
that salary range, they will not lose any money. And
Saying is, what happened was before,
Mm-hmm.
people were coming in and they were actually making more than somebody who had been here 5 years.
The pay
Yeah,
scale, the way it was originally set up,
Mhm.
not the way we intended it,
Mhm.
the way it was set up, there was like a hump in there where people were actually getting hired,
Mhm.
and these people in the middle dug
Yeah,
a little,
so with
and
all
they
of-
were actually making more money.
Yes, sir. So what? Yes, sir. So what?
Asking, is that issue
Resolved.
So that's not gonna happen again?
No, ma'am. So
Okay,
what?
and everybody stays whole?
Everybody stays whole. Yes.
Okay.
The only reason.
I do have a question, and I'm sure I missed a little bit.
Mhm.
Like bus drivers and so
Uh-huh.
forth. Are we now gonna pay them like $28 an hour? Or are we just gonna pay them for 4 trips? You know, let's say 4 days, whatever. If it's 8 trips or whatever, I'm not specific about that, but we are cutting 2 trips a week off. for their
So
paycheck.
they will receive the same amount for their guaranteed 2 routes per in the morning and 2 routes in the afternoon. Am I saying that correctly? Do you say
Just 2 routes a day, 2 hours in the morning.
2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon? So
Right.
that will remain the same.
Through Friday or just through Thursday?
Just do Thursday. We will
So
only have
they're-
students in Monday
They
through.
are taking a pay cut.
No.
Their amount is going up also?
So it's like I said, instead of $20 an hour, it's gonna be,
Whatever that number is, but
yeah,
they'll still
25 or
have the same
30 an
amount
hour.
each week.
Okay.
So again, The current employees will remain whole, and then we're looking at where we bring new individuals in. Now,
I have a question for you, Ravon. I'm sorry to interrupt because we're on bus drivers. So
Yep.
we're looking at $50 an hour to $50 an hour. So that's not changing. So
No.
if we're saying that for a 5-day week, they're making $50 per route, but they're essentially losing 2 routes on Friday.
So they're not staying.
So they're not saying, I mean, they will, yes, they will make the same amount per route. Like, yes, they're still making that, but they're losing
But they're
2
losing a
routes.
whole day.
Yes, so let me, if you would allow me, to look at the bus driver and the bus monitor again. I just want to make sure I'm really clear on what we're going to do with those individuals. I would appreciate that. Because in my mind, we have them to where they're still making $50 per route. And yes,
But we're cutting their route, we're cutting a whole day out, just like
Yes.
the other employees were cutting a whole day out, so we've increased their hourly rate. So
Right.
in those 4 days, they're gonna be making what they would have been making in 5
Yes.
days. So that's exactly what we would need to do for the bus drivers to keep them whole.
well, and there was a reason, there was a reason why I left this one the way it is. So if you would just allow me to kind of revisit that, I will make sure that I get with Mr. Hopper to come back to you guys on that particular transportation part.
So based
Okay.
on that piece of information, I would like to make a motion to table this for a later
Okay.
date. Just based off of that, because I what I don't want to get us into
With
is
the-
voting on something and then it coming back and not being done right. So I have a motion to table this
Can I
presentation
say
for a
something?
later
Can
date.
you also look at maintenance too? Because that's gonna be an issue. If we're raising everybody else's pay and somebody works overtime that's an hourly employee, however, maintenance is making the same amount and they're working 5 days, that's not really treating the maintenance group fairly like we are these other,
Can you
because we're making them work 5 days, so their overtime rate, if they got overtime, would be less.
I think what we do need to do is make sure there's equity there, and while I want those guys here every day, essentially, I think in the interest of equity, we need to make sure that whether it's those guys are here 4 days and they rotate, which is probably the better way to do that.
Right.
But yes, we do need to make sure that
Should I
that's
make the recommendation, we've gone to a 4-day, and we chose Monday through Thursday. And there is a motion to table this to a later date, and I think I would like to make that motion, or second it, because there are a lot of questions, and to fairness to administration, they need to get these things answered, so we don't go through another, budget crisis because we didn't understand each other.
Yes, absolutely. The only ones that were not touched was the transportation piece. All of the other pay grades on the auxiliary, the professional, the police, all of those were corrected. And maintenance. Well, maintenance, yes, we can look at them. Initially, maintenance stated that they were going to work 250 days, so nothing was changing, and then they will still have their blended overtime rate. Well, I know a lot of them drive the buses as well. Yes, so we can look at maintenance again to see if that pay needs to be adjusted at all.
But the overriding point of all of this is that people are not going to get a pay cut.
People are not getting a pay cut at all. They're not receiving a pay cut. Yes, because all of this is updated with the exception of maintenance because they will remain in the same, and then looking at transportation again, just to make sure that we don't miss anything with our transportation people.
And just when you're, I know there's a motion for all that, but just whenever we get it back or you get it back, and this may be figured in there, but for somebody who's maybe a teacher but then is also a monitor, if you can also come back with how that's gonna be handled. And that may handle itself whenever you change that up, so I don't.
Okay.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Motion by Kirby and a second by Gray. All in favor to table the motion?
And I'll look at that transportation tomorrow.
Madam
And then moving on to the teacher pay scale.
Let's go to item number 11, consider approval of 2023-2024 pay scale, classroom teachers, librarians, nurses.
Yes. So with the teacher pay scale, again, we have side by side there for you. On the right side is our current schedule for our teachers. Year 0 through 4 shows the 5% increase for this year. However, years 5 through 30 did not show that 5% increase. So for the new salary schedule that you guys would hopefully approve tonight, it already has the 5% that those teachers received this year embedded in the pay scale. And so teachers will keep their 5% that they receive this year, and then they will just receive their step for the following year.
I make a motion to approve the 23-24 pay scale for classroom teachers, librarians.
Okay, I got a motion by Tasha,
I got a second.
second by Kirby. All in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you guys again, I appreciate it. All right.
Going to item number 12, consent agenda. If there's any items on this consent agenda that anybody would like to have pulled out to discuss separately, let me know. If not, anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion we pass the consent agenda as presented.
I got a motion by Greg,
I'll second.
a second by Amber. All in favor? Oh,
Oh. Do we still do the piece, or does it matter?
Elizabeth, there's no reason to do this election. I mean,
Yes, because we cannot cancel an election until next week, and we do have some associated
we'll go through the
costs.
motions then of doing it.
So we need to
Okay.
keep that.
okay, so all in favor? Motion carries. Trying to trip me up, Tasha.
I know, sorry.
I'm on a roll. Item number I mean, it's only 9 o'clock. Item number 13, consider approval of addition, revisions, or deletions of local policies as recommended by TASB Policy Service and according to the instruction sheet for TASB Localized Policy Manual Update 120. Approval of local policy, CB local, CKC local, FNG local, and FO local. Any other locals?
That's it.
All right.
So, anyway, you guys have had a chance to look at that. The CB local is about grants and awards. CKC local is about safety programs and management. That's going to address response to nearby train derailment. That's certainly a potential in our community. FNG local is talking about, this is about student rights and responsibilities, complaints within the scope of 504, and complaints concerning disputes regarding students' eligibility for free and reduced lunch programs shall be submitted in accordance with the COB. FO local then is the one that talks about student discipline, and district employee may restrain a student with a disability who receives special ed only in accordance with law. So those are just some changes to those local policies. And I didn't cover over every one of those, but anyway, do you have any questions over any of those?
I'll make a motion to approve the addition, revision, or deletion of local policies as recommended.
Okay, got a motion by Tasha. Second by Amber. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay, going to item number 14, consider approval of year-to-date investment report.
So this is just our annual investment report that we provide every February. This is for the calendar year that just ended, December 31st. And on the, not sure which page you have up there. We'll start there. So in the investment report, we have to list out the approved training providers who provides that training to our investment officer, which is Megan Schwartz. And then a list of our brokers and dealers. These are the people who are currently investing our money for us. Currently we have Cowboy Bank, Texpool, First Public Lone Star, and those are the only ones that we have investments in at this time. The next part is just the statement of compliance that just says the attached report of the investment portfolio is in compliance with the investment policy and strategy that is established by the district. And then there is a resolution there saying that we have gone over the investment report. Our compliance with Public Funds Investment Act, you can see there on each one of those, we are required to comply with each one of those statements, and Megan has put some notes in there for you that all of our investments comply with the Venus ISD board policy, CDA local. The annual report ensures compliance with the investment policy, and just states that the board will review that. The board should perform a compliance audit of management controls on the investments. That is done with our annual audit each year. When Mr. Deaton came out and presented that last month, that included all of that in our financial audit. And then number 4 there is written investment strategies for each of our funds. And each investment strategy must describe the objectives for the particular fund as it relates to suitability of the investment. And this annual report ensures that compliance. Number 5 is the investment officer must complete at least one training session within the first 12 months of assuming office, and then an additional 8 hours every 2 years. Megan has met that. She's completed 8 hours of training during 2022 and had the initial in year 1. Number 6 is that investments should be made with judgment and care. They should be governed by the objectives of preservation and safety of principal, liquidity, and yield. And all district investments currently are in CDs, certificates of deposits, or in our pool funds, which inherently have all of those objectives. And then the investment officer is subject to special provisions if a personal business relationship exists, and no personal business relationship exists with any of our brokers. And finally, the investment officers shall prepare at least a quarterly written report of investment transactions. So this serves as our 4th quarter and our yearly report. And then on the last page of that, you can see all of the investments that we currently have. Starting with January 1st, what our beginning balance was, our ending balance for each one on December 31st, and then any interest that was earned for each one of those accounts. Talk too fast for you. Did anybody have any questions over any of the investment funds?
I'll make a motion to approve the year-to-date investment report.
Got a motion by Tasha,
Second.
and a second by Joe. All in favor? Motion carries. Okay. Going to item number 15, consider approval of purchase of activity bus.
Okay. Some folks wanted to talk about this at this meeting, and so we put it back on here. And so we talked about the activity bus last time, and Melanie was going to address some of the questions from last time. And I will say that, what we do every year is we buy a couple of buses anyway. Those buses currently cost us, is it $110? Or they're actually
Yeah, the last were.
route buses. Route buses.
Yeah, the last were, I believe, 126.
126. So
I believe that
yeah.
I'm correct.
So like
That's
everything
basic.
else, they're going up. But we buy 2 buses every year just to keep them in rotation, and that's done well for us. The proposal here is to, instead of getting a couple of route buses for next year, that we get a couple of activity buses. Then what we're currently doing is we take some route buses and use them for activities and sort of earmark them for that type of service. So basically, we would be taking those buses and putting them into the routes, and so essentially we gain 2 route
Correct.
buses regardless.
The 2 that we purchased would go into our extracurricular and field trip, and the 2 that those replace would then go into our fleet for routes.
Yeah. So anyway, with that, I'll yield the floor.
The ones that we ear tag for events, they can be used as picking up kids too, right?
Correct. They can.
And the 2 you get, or whatever you get, won't be.
They will not be route buses, no. But there has never been a time that we have needed to use all of our buses that we have slated for extracurricular as route buses. Even when we've needed a sub bus or to fill in, we currently have one additional bus. So it can float between being an extracurricular or it being a route bus. And we would still have half of our fleet of extracurricular that we could pull in as a route bus. So if you were to approve the activity buses, those would remain and the other two would just rotate in and they would go in and replace, and those two could be used as route buses. And I think that's something that one of my drivers came to me and spoke about after he was, aware and watched, is that when we send these buses out, that they go and they're like a billboard for us. They're an advertisement, they're a recruiting tool. They show who we are and what we're about based on our decisions and what we put into our kids and our program to show. So, they felt like that would be money well invested. And after, when I called and asked how much it would be to get the interior pieces that we were looking at for an activity bus in a yellow bus with the safety equipment, and they said it would cost about an additional $10,000. When he called me back to tell me that, he also called me back to tell me that the buses are going up $10,000, and that they would honor through the 15th, and we were able to get that extended through now. So essentially, the cost for a route bus is going to go up to what we have been quoted for an activity bus, because we don't have a quote to hold at that rate. So it's going to cost us an additional $20,000 if we go with yellow buses as opposed to.
How old is our oldest route bus?
The oldest route bus, we have some that are, we have a couple that are early 2000s that are like maybe 18 years old, but just because it's been a very reliable bus, all except for 3, I believe, are 16 and up.
If we take some of these activity buses that we're using now, right, for extracurriculars, if we take those out, right, and we just use them for route buses, and we then float in the activity buses, what type of longevity does that add to the buses that we're using just as route buses? Because now we've taken off the mileage for activities and all the trips. What does that give us to the life of the bus that we're taking out of that rotation? What's the life, like what is the life expectancy or the maintenance piece? Talk to me about that.
Sure. It really depends on how many trips and activities that we have that students go on, and the activity bus would be the choice that everyone would want to use. And those, what I'm seeing, we've got a few that came in August, and they've got about 5,000 or 6,000 miles on them, and the others that came in last year are approaching 15,000. So it's a hit or miss, just because you could have a bus that goes out and then you've got another that's got twice as many miles on it and it has been fine. So you expect to get, more than 200,000, closer to 300,000 with the Cummins engine. So it's just keeping everything going and doing the maintenance that we do and hoping. We have another that only has 40-something thousand miles that was a Bluebird, which we don't want to go back with, that at 46,000 miles, it needs a new engine and it's sitting there with nothing. So we've had a lot better service with our international buses, and that's the direction that you've been quoted on for the activity.
So on a Friday night for a football game, an away football game, how many buses do we use? With band and the team and
5 to 6. It depends. The 6th one might be if we have students that are divided between activities that we have to take once they're finished with a different activity.
So this doesn't take away having to still use some of the route buses.
Correct.
For
correct.
activity buses.
Usually the band goes later than the other athletes, and so our route drivers are back, and I tend to schedule those even if I had a extracurricular bus available, because they're most familiar with that.
The main difference is this is the same bus as a 72 passenger, but it's configured for a 42 passenger.
Correct. It has a few additional, the seats are a little bit different, more comfortable. It has USB plugs so that students can charge their devices as they're going. And then it has also storage racks above and a small storage area that's under the bus.
So on Friday, who rides the bus? Band or team?
Depends, we would have to figure out if we were gonna do a rotation or if we were going to send our athletes. Personally, my opinion is that we don't always send the same students, that we would rotate it and give all students the option.
See, last week, the argument was, it's for more room so the kids won't be cramped. Our athletes won't be cramped. Now, we're gonna rotate athletes out of it.
Well, our band students, we have the same size band students. I mean, they're the same age and the same grade levels that are going that night. So if it were a case where we've got our larger students and we have a small group, of UIL students at the same time, then I would say I would probably choose priority of who's going to be most comfortable and best use that based on the numbers that we have going. So I think, some common sense applied, but also fairness.
If we could afford 5 or 6 of these, it'd be great.
It would, but 2 is the starting place.
What's our yearly budget on the buses, or what do we have in the budget? 250,000, right? So we're looking at spending a little more than what we budgeted.
30,000.
30,000. So, okay.
But we did not spend any of that 250 this year because we had a grant, correct? Or the
Correct.
ESSER funds, so.
And those were actually before the start of this school year.
Right, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So you still have $250,000 in your thing, okay.
Yes.
In this budget.
That would roll back.
Yes.
So how much total do you need? What'd you say, 250?
Yes, 250.
And so you need not to, 280? I mean, that's.
I think it's a
It's
little
like-
over, it's less than 290, but I think it's about 286.
I think it's like, what, 280, that was like 288, I think it's,
I think it's 288.
well, we just do them.
So did you say how did you say you would decide who would ride on the bus?
Well, that's something we would do at a district level, and basically, we're gonna rotate those out, since it's not gonna be always the band, or always the boys, or always the girls, okay? And we rotate those things out. It would also go by, I think we'd take a look at the distance. You're going this distance, they're going that distance, that kind of a thing. So, it would be something that we would need to make that as equitable as possible. But that's just something we need to do at a district level and say, this is how we're gonna do our buses.
Okay, so it'd be about 289, I think, if you round it up, would be the
So
total.
you could say 290. It's close, a few thousand below that, but 290, it would be less than 290.
Okay. Well, I make a motion, this is one of the things I wanted to see, I make a motion to approve the purchase of the activity bus not to exceed 290,000.
I'll second that.
I got a second by Amber. All in favor? All against? Okay, motion carries. I'm going to go to item number 16, executive session for 551-071, 551-072, 551-074, 551-076, 1 and 2, 551-082, and 551-0821 at 9:23. Okay, we're gonna reconvene from executive session at 10:37. I'm gonna go to item number, we need to do anything on item number 18? I know, yeah. No, we didn't. No, we don't have anything, yeah. So, okay, we're gonna skip item number 18, go to item number 19, reports. Superintendent?
So you see the information in the board packet as far as the attendance and enrollment. Besides that, I also wanted to make an announcement tonight. I have a great deal of love and compassion for the community of Venus, for our kids, and I have a great passion to see them succeed. We've done a lot of things in this district in a little over 5 years, and I'm very, very proud of not only those things, but more than that, I'm proud of our kids, and I'm proud of our staff. But at this point, I've been doing this for 39 years, and I have decided to retire, and I intend to make that date June 30th. However, what I will not do is leave this district high and dry. So if for some reason June 30th needs to be extended a little bit, I will be working with the board to do whatever it takes to accommodate a smooth transition to a new superintendent. Again, I absolutely love this district, I love this board and this community, and it's meant a world to me. And I want to thank the board for your confidence and your support, and I want to thank our staff and our Venus ISD team for their relentless pursuit of excellence in each day. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hopper. I definitely appreciate all the years you've put in for us here in the school district. Yeah, it will be tough to see you go, but I wish I could retire right now. I'm just saying. I'm a little jealous. Okay, we're gonna, anybody have any, well, the assistant superintendent's not here. Anybody have any questions on the reports? Anybody?
No.
Anybody? No, nothing? Okay. We're gonna skip on down to item number 20, board request for additional items. Next scheduled board meeting date is March 20, 2023.
March 20th. I actually do have something. I just want to see if we can get the FFA group to come out. I know we talk a lot about the welding, but I would like for those advisors to come out and maybe do a presentation on what we actually offer at the middle school and at the high school.
Okay.
We are planning
March 11th. March 11th. That's the other thing I was going to add is like we've going to do March 11th for.
What time?
Do we want to start
9 a.m.
Or,
We had originally said 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
but is it gonna be a longer meeting than we thought?
It probably.
It's gonna be all day, right?
No, I don't think
be-
it's going to be all day. But I would say instead of 3 hours, probably plan for 4 to 5.
Okay.
So is everybody good with 9? Let's say 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock, March 11th.
Yes, that means lunch.
That means we're gonna have to eat.
Okay.
What? Food. Oh.
We could back that up to 7. That way we wouldn't have to eat lunch.
Yeah, there you go, a big
Then you
breakfast.
have to eat breakfast.
You know, that's called continental.
Okay. And so,
And the meeting's gonna be here at admin. Okay.
that March 11th will be a combination team of 8 plus, we're talking about, presentations. Okay. If there's nothing else, then we're gonna go to item number 21, adjournment at 10:42. There we go.
It's not midnight. It's not midnight. It's the same day. You're right.
Thank you.